In a high school somewhere in Japan, there lived a boy who couldn't fight back. The delinquents made them their daily target, and he hated himself for his cowardice. He hated the bystanders who watched and did nothing, but most of all, he hated the bullies just as much as he hated his own pathetic self. Day and night, he wished for a chance to start over. Then one day, he was summoned to another world. He thought this was his second chance. He became Yamato Taku, the new messiah. But this world was suffering under the demon lord's shadow, and the people lived in fear. When he thought deeply about it, he had to be honest with himself. Someone who couldn't even stand up to bullies had no business fighting a demon lord. But then he met Weiss, the saint. She taught him to become stronger, not just in magic, but in heart. Slowly, he accepted that he was no longer that frightened boy. He became someone people could rely on. He trained day and night, pushing through every hardship, determined not to disappoint himself or others this time. Months passed, and his perseverance paid off. His power grew beyond anyone's expectations. But no matter how much good he did, people still treated him as the enemy. Now Yamato stood before a crowd, bound in magic sealing cuffs, awaiting execution. His power had grown too quickly, too wildly. The people saw a monster, not a savior. According to the executioner, he was just another worlder holding too much power. Before he could betray humanity like others before him, he had to be dealt with, right now. The crowd demanded his death before he could even speak his last words. But Yamato kept his composure, refusing to make a scene. Then he saw her. Weiss fought through the crowd, crying, begging for his life. Her authority meant nothing here, but seeing her fight for him made him happy. In Japan, in this world, he never found acceptance, but at least one person shed tears for him in this lifetime. That was enough. Then blood splattered everywhere as his head left his shoulders. Seconds later, he woke up in a hospital bed. He wondered if he had returned to the real world, but that didn't make sense. He knew he died, and those 3 years in the other world couldn't have been a dream. He stopped trying to understand the impossible and decided to confirm his situation first. When he saw his reflection in the window, he froze. Bruises covered his face. Several bones were fractured. He tried using the powers he learned in the other world, even though it seemed impossible. To his surprise, it worked. The pain vanished. He stood on his own 2 feet. Magic still worked, so it wasn't a dream. But the thought that he might be daydreaming right now wouldn't leave his mind. A woman claiming to be his mother rushed in with a doctor. They were shocked to see him moving. His injuries should have kept him bedridden for weeks, but what confused him more was that he didn't recognize this woman at all. He couldn't mention the bullies, so he pretended to have amnesia. When his mother asked what happened, he said he was playing on the school roof with friends when the fence broke and he fell. The doctor believed him and asked if he remembered his name, Kusagi Takeru. He answered yes. The doctor found it impossible that Takeru's injuries had healed so quickly. Even proficient healers couldn't achieve this. Takeru noted that this world had healers too, which surprised him. Minutes later, his father arrived, crying with relief. Even though Takeru didn't remember them, he was just happy his boy was alive. Takeru didn't understand what was happening anymore, but for the first time, he felt parental love. He promised this body that he would find a way to return it to its original owner, but for now, just for a little while, he wanted to enjoy this feeling. After passing all medical tests with flying colors, he was discharged within a day. On the way home, he noticed the hospital technology seemed more futuristic than anything he remembered. Everyone spoke Japanese, so this must be Japan, but the city had a cleanliness he wasn't used to. He checked the news on a screen built into the steering wheel. The date flashed. The end of May 2040. 40 years had passed since he lived as Yamato Taku, but that wasn't what shocked him. The news also reported on hunters who risked their lives protecting people from monsters, ogres specifically, monsters that shouldn't exist in this world. He asked his parents about it. His mother explained that hunters did incredible work. If a hunter was too clumsy, it would be over for them in no time. They fought using magic as if it were normal. Takeru realized that even though this was Japan, it strongly resembled the other world. Then, a monster attacked up ahead. Using his powers he gained in the other world, he saved his parents' lives. But just when they thought it was over, a gate break appeared. Ogres began marching out one by by one. Takeru knew ogres well. Even trained knights needed several to take one down. Ordinary people stood no chance, but he could make quick work of them with his magic skills. However, he hesitated to show his real power. The nail that sticks out gets hammered. That lesson from the other world still burned in his memory. Besides, this body wasn't his. If he stood out too much, returning it later would cause trouble. He didn't want to be afraid anymore, but he also didn't want to cause problems. So he decided to run. But then he saw his parents about to be killed by an ogre. He had no choice. He used his powers anyway. To avoid shocking them, he claimed a nearby hunter had helped. His parents felt relieved and started making their way out. But Takeru noticed something. After his attack, someone else had attacked too. This could become troublesome. However, his parents were still in shock, so he decided to deal with it later. With their car destroyed, they walked home for hours. Despite the long day, they were thankful to be alive. No casualties from such a big incident was amazing. When they finally reached home, Takeru knew he needed information to live as Kusagi Takeru. He searched for a diary, but found nothing. The only interesting thing was a magazine about hunters covered in notes. The original owner had written about wanting to join a specific guild if he ever became a hunter. Takeru felt weird. This was Japan, but it didn't feel like it. He had spent 3 years in another world, so strange things didn't surprise him anymore. He got his first phone and struggled to operate it, but he enjoyed learning. Every notification startled him more than fighting the demon lord ever did. His mother assured him it was okay to use their money and encouraged him to keep learning. She also suggested he stay home from school due to his condition, which was good because bullies had already texted him warnings. During his time off, he researched on his smartphone. 30 years ago, after he was summoned to the other world, gates connected Earth to that world. Monsters spilled out, killing people. Modern weapons didn't work on them. Then, magicians appeared and started fighting back. Magic became a skill anyone could learn. Then, an essential subject. Those who studied magic became magi. Those who defeated monsters became hunters. Their role became crucial in dealing with gate breaks and protecting everyday life. That's what he read online. But to learn more, he decided to visit the city himself. Society had truly adapted to magic. The world felt unreal to him. 40 years had passed and people had gotten used to this new normal. He didn't want to return to his time, but he couldn't deny feeling more alone than he expected. While walking, a woman screamed for help. A man had snatched her bag and was using magic to escape. Without thinking, Takeru used his magic to catch him. The woman thanked him, amazed by his skill. He reminded himself to be more careful after moving too fast. The grandmother handed him candy as thanks, which reminded him of his own grandmother and his past life. He realized that even after 40 years and so many changes, the fundamental goodness of people remained the same. He was glad for that.
On his way home, the bully who had been threatening him appeared, ready to fight. This guy thought highly of himself. Takeru realized some things never changed, no matter the era or world. The bully warned Takeru to call him Adachi-kun with respect, establishing his superiority. He blamed Takeru for police coming to his house, which got him beaten by his father. As Adachi's voice grew louder, Takeru stayed calm and let him vent. Even after 40 years, guys like this still existed. The original owner of this body faced the same problem he did in his past life, but compared to his past self, who was paralyzed by fear, fighting dragons in the other world seemed scarier than this. Facing Adachi felt like dealing with an angry dog. Takeru realized he had finally grown. He laughed at this realization, which insulted Adachi further. Adachi swung at him. Takeru dodged each attack easily, without even trying. While Adachi struggled, Takeru asked himself what to do. He could send this guy flying, but he didn't want to be flashy. He decided to just make Adachi fall by stomping the ground. That was the plan. But when Adachi started bad-mouthing his parents, Takeru punched him anyway. Adachi grew furious, not expecting Takeru to fight back. He prepared to use offensive magic in public, but before he could, a gate break appeared. An ogre punched Adachi once and he went down hard. Takeru checked and saw Adachi was alive but unconscious. With no witnesses around, Takeru decided to handle the monster himself. One powerful punch did more damage than expected. After the brief fight, Takeru examined the gate. It resembled a summoning skill from the other world. If he destroyed the magic circle, it might disappear. His theory proved correct. As officers arrived, he rushed away before anyone could see him. The officials couldn't believe their eyes. A bloodied ogre, one of the most dangerous monsters, had been taken down in a single hit. The gate was already closed, too. They found a collapsed boy with a few bruises. Based on the scene, they concluded he must have done it. But the higher officer didn't think so. She sensed nowhere near enough mana from that boy to accomplish this. Then she remembered seeing Takeru kill a monster to save his parents. She decided to investigate further at the Hunters Association. Someone had reached the scene before them and handled everything. She needed to know who. Weeks passed, and Takeru finally returned to school. Kazami High School stood in the Tokyo metropolitan area. The site felt more familiar than he expected. On his way to class, he remembered his father's worried face that morning, telling him he didn't have to go if he wasn't ready. But Takeru knew he was fine. The original Takeru wouldn't want to repeat a year due to missed classes, so here he was, fulfilling his duties as a student. While waiting on campus, he observed students chatting normally. The school had that carefree energy. He wondered why the original Takeru went to such lengths, deciding to end his life if his environment was like this. There was only one explanation. The original Takeru probably didn't have many friends. His circumstances mirrored Takeru's past life closely. The only difference was that Takeru got a second chance in another world. He practiced magic, exchanged fierce glances with fellow adventurers, and fought powerful demons. He remembered Weiss saying she wanted to create a world where everyone could laugh naturally. Lost in thought, he subtly slapped his face a few times to wake up. There was no turning back now. Taking that first step was nerve-wracking, but Weiss had taught him to dare greatly. He entered his classroom where everyone was already seated. The teacher announced Takeru's return and explained his amnesia due to injuries. She asked everyone to help and support him. After introductions, Takeru took his seat. His classmates seemed indifferent to his return. Then Adachi entered, looking proud. People thought he had taken down that bloodied ogre. He was so full of himself, claiming it was expected from someone as great as him. But when he saw Takeru at the back of the classroom, embarrassment flashed across his face. Takeru was the only one who witnessed that ogre knock him out with one punch. Instead of teasing Takeru, Adachi ignored him, which surprised everyone. While attention stayed on Adachi, one student looked worried for Takeru. A timid boy with glasses approached and asked if he was okay. The boy introduced himself as Sawamura Takumi. Like the original Takeru, Sakumi loved hunters, which is why they often talked before. Takeru was shocked to learn the original owner had friends. During dismissal, Takeru felt more exhausted than expected. He had grown physically and mentally in the other world, but his intellect hadn't improved. He forgot to study in high school before, and now textbooks weren't even made of paper anymore. Learning was harder than ever. Sakumi seemed amazed that despite his amnesia, Takeru looked rather fine. Takeru assured him he was improving day by day. Since they were already talking, Takeru asked what kind of person he was before. Without hesitation, Sakumi said Takeru was, and still is, the kindest person in the world. The bullies interrupted their conversation, but Adachi seemed more distant in his teasing, probably because of what happened the other day. To avoid looking weak, he claimed he didn't want any trouble, and walked away. But instead of leaving, they chose Takumi as their next target. They pretended to go to the library to study, but everyone knew better. As soon as Sakumi left with them, Takeru asked where they had taken him. He thought about the rooftop, but the school had closed access after his incident. The industrial area behind the school made more sense. His classmates were shocked to see him rushing to help. He wasn't this imposing before his amnesia. At the industrial area, Adachi and his friends questioned Takumi. Every wrong answer earned him a punch. Takeru watched from the shadows. He badly wanted to help, but he didn't want to change Takumi's circumstances too much. Causing a scene would draw attention, but then he remembered that Sakumi had come to protect him. Still, it wasn't enough to push him in. Minutes passed. They tossed and punched Sakumi like a toy, teasingly telling him to call for Takeru's help. Then Takumi spoke. He felt guilty for letting Takeru, his friend, suffer so much from these bullies just so he could stay safe. Now that Takeru was back, he'd gained the courage to not abandon his friend again. Hearing this ignited something in Takeru. For the first time, someone was willing to risk their life for him. Now, it was his turn to protect. Seconds after Takeru arrived, Sakumi fainted. The bullies mocked him for not even having the endurance to be a sandbag. But Takeru knew his friend was as strong as anyone. Seeing Takeru here amazed the bullies. They thought his amnesia made him crazy and that they would beat him easily. They didn't know this wasn't the same Takeru. One punch brought them down. They tried to fight back, full of themselves, but got defeated every time. Adachi grew furious watching his teammates suffer. He prepared to fight, but Takeru stopped him cold, warning him that his barking habit would annoy people. Adachi kept his ego up, not wanting his friends to see him weaker than Takeru. His friends still came at Takeru, even though they stood no chance. Takeru was okay with this. It would be easier to take them down in one go. He remembered war against the Demon Lord's army. He had been honest to a fault and let a guy go because he claimed he was forced to fight. That village he was supposed to protect was razed to the ground because of that mistake. He learned that once he started something, he couldn't be half-hearted in finishing it. He wouldn't make that mistake again. Furious now, he prepared to break these bullies completely, but before he could, a blue gate appeared. An ogre emerged. The three bullies panicked. Ogres were the most dangerous monsters from blue gates, but since Adachi was here, his friends felt relieved, thinking he could easily defeat it after beating that bloodied ogre the first time. Adachi couldn't reveal the truth, so he acted strong and prepared to attack. His magic was nothing compared to real hunters. The ogre punched him once and he went down. His friends ran for their lives.
Takeru stood calmly. The ogre rushed toward him. One blow. The monster everyone feared fell instantly. Adachi witnessed everything this time and trembled, calling Takeru a monster. When Takeru walked toward him, Adachi begged him to stay away, but Takeru just wanted to help. He used healing magic to ease Adachi's pain. Then Takeru broke the ground with one touch. He told Adachi to claim he defeated the ogre. Takeru wanted to live peacefully without standing out. Adachi initially refused, but eventually agreed. Takeru warned him not to bother Takumi or him again. He also wanted Adachi to stop bullying entirely. If there was a next time, Takeru would make sure he didn't live to see it. With hunters on their way, Takeru carried Takumi and left, reminding Adachi to deceive them well. Later, at Odo Academy, the hunter training school, one hunter reported being dispatched to Kazami High School, but everything was already handled when she arrived. A male student claimed he defeated the ogre alone, but the mana remnants at the scene exceeded normal human output significantly. It could only be excreted by a monster presence. The hunter was terrified, even with her power. The person behind this was no ordinary being. The organization head decided to handle this fascinating case personally. After reviewing everything, she felt certain someone else had contained the monster. The report mentioned Adachi arguing with someone when he supposedly defeated the bloody ogre before. That vanished person was likely the real culprit, but without concrete evidence, she had to question Adachi herself. For her family and the people, she would leave no irregularity unchecked. This girl leading the hunters was none other than S-rank hunter Sakura, and she had now arrived at Takeru's high school to uncover the truth. Days after the incident, the whole classroom, including Adachi's friends, were shocked by his sudden character change. He looked posh and proper now, a complete overnight transformation. When his friends moved to tease Takeru, Adachi stopped him himself, confusing Takumi completely. Before things got weirder, Takeru arrived, changing the atmosphere. Takumi asked if Takeru knew what happened to Adachi. Takeru suggested maybe Adachi finally decided to be more diligent. Takumi thought that was good. As the bell rang, Sakura arrived at Kazami High School to conduct her investigation. All hunters were managed by the Hunter Association now. The thought of someone with that much power roaming freely worried Sakura deeply. She would find this irregular no matter what. As she entered the school, she encountered another S-rank hunter, Maiwa Jin, known as Orochi. He asked what brought her here, then dismissed it. She asked if it was okay for him to be here since he was guild master of Odo's guild, responsible for the Tokai region. He assured her his guild had excellent people. Tension hung between them. Sakura knew Orochi wasn't here by chance. Odo's guild was famous for aggressive scouting. He was likely here for the irregular, trying to recruit another talented hunter. As they discussed, a gate break suddenly happened inside the school. Students panicked as teachers called for orderly evacuation. Sakura prepared to enter hell, but Orochi walked away, claiming he wasn't free for small fries. His words irritated Sakura deeply. He wasn't fulfilling his hunter duty, but Orochi saw something off. The magic power from that gate was stronger than expected. He needed to prepare before facing it. When Sakura arrived, chaos filled the school. More monsters than she thought. She used all her power to save as many students as possible, checking every room. Some students with fighting experience handled themselves against skeletons and ghouls, the lowest ranked monsters. But this unusual situation could still cause problems for untrained students. Sakura continued helping everyone she could. Rushing towards the gate's source, she found Takeru forming a magic circle to subdue the chaos. The moment she saw him, she knew he was the irregular she sought. Realizing he'd been seen right after closing the gate, Takeru ran. Sakura chased with lightning boost, dedicated to catching him. She was astonished. Takeru used mere physical boost but moved faster than average users. Her lightning boost should give more speed, but that wasn't the case. Still, she could keep up. Takeru didn't want to show his face, but he felt her pressure even at this distance. He could go faster if he wanted, but this was the limit for Kusagi Takeru's body. In his original trained body, he'd be kilometers away by now, but thinking about that wouldn't help. Magic stemmed from the soul, and he had it under control, but he couldn't let his guard down. Training this body came to mind, but first he needed to hide his identity. Using aerial boost, he vanished instantly due to pure speed. Sakura gave up chasing for now. Minutes later, Takeru was far from school. Classes were surely canceled for the day. No reason to go back. Walking home, he considered his pursuer was probably a hunter. Online research suggested they were like chivalric orders or adventurers from the other world. But the reality seemed different. He wouldn't let his guard down anymore. His mother hugged him tightly when he got home. She had heard about ogres appearing in his school. He hadn't answered his phone, so they worried terribly. Speaking of phones, he realized his was missing. His mother said a friend returned it and was waiting in the living room. When he saw who it was, he froze. Sakura sat there, fascinated by his shocked expression. He tried to hide, thanking her for returning his phone while pretending not to be the guy from earlier. Sakura cut through the act. She wanted to ask about some things. Takeru awkwardly asked, "What things?" She mentioned the abandoned factory incident and the bloody ogre incident. Takeru realized there was no escape. This was worse than he thought. He couldn't run, and he couldn't discuss this with his mother listening. He distracted his mom asking for privacy. Thankfully, she left. He took Sakura to his room. She immediately asked who he really was. Takeru was shocked by her directness. He wouldn't reveal anything. Sakura warned him, depending on his answer, she might have to restrain him. Takeru thought her boorish. Lying poorly would backfire, but telling the truth about being a hero from another world would sound like a joke. His silence tested Sakura's patience. She pinned him to the wall, creating an awkward position. She thought his silence meant he was hiding something bad. Takeru explained he had amnesia and genuinely didn't remember anything. But if that were true, how could he fight monsters and stay calm during emergencies? Takeru tried to stay calm to avoid argument. He claimed he wasn't sure himself why he could do these things. As expected, that excuse stretched believability. Sakura grew more suspicious. She asked why he hid his power. Surprisingly, Takeru answered truthfully. He gained this power suddenly, but didn't want to use it because it would scare people. He didn't want to worry his parents and had no desire to become a hunter. Sakura didn't believe anyone would refuse high social status and fame so easily. Takeru seriously stated he didn't need such things. Peaceful living was enough. His depth surprised her. She began understanding his perspective. As long as he didn't use his power for evil, the Hunter Association had no issue. She assured him she would make the investigation disappear so they wouldn't dig deeper. Takeru didn't expect this reaction. Sakura admitted she didn't believe everything immediately, but seeing that Takeru only protected others opened her eyes. The discussion ended. Before leaving, Sakura apologized for chasing him and being violent in his home. Her bow made him uncomfortable. He assured her it was fine. Then, seriously, she asked him to consider becoming a hunter so others could live in peace. He couldn't hide that power forever. But if he truly wanted a normal, peaceful life, she would do her best to protect that. Her words reminded him of Ichinaka Weiss. There were still good people in this world. Days later, Takeru went for a run. With school temporarily closed after the disaster, running had become his routine. During this particular session, a black gate appeared. Authorities arrived quickly. Black gates took time to break open, allowing hunters to enter and defeat the boss monster before monsters spilled out. Crowds gathered, waiting for the hunters to return. Takeru wondered if inside that gate was the world he knew. The thought of entering crossed his mind. Just then, the Windward Guard party arrived, assuring everyone there was nothing to fear. This C-rank party consisted of Shy Chika, Tomita Yuchi, Amami Matsui, and leader Gato Mamoru. The crowd grew lively at their arrival. Their bond reminded Takeru of his time in the other world. Gato Mamoru reminded him of the general he trained with, making him smile. In a brief memory, Kingdom Army General Grot honed Takeru's swordsmanship and fighting skills. Takeru could never defeat him, but Grot believed in him. As the chosen messiah, Takeru's abilities would grow astonishingly. Takeru wondered why he couldn't land a single attack. Grot explained that powerful attacks always leave openings. It was about using them wisely. Their training ended when a demon appeared, one they'd never seen. It found an opening and injured the general. Takeru froze in fear, unable to help. Grot, always putting others first, told him to run while the demon was distracted. Takeru couldn't leave him. Grot emotionally begged him to go. He couldn't lose anyone else after losing his wife and son. Hearing this, Takeru rushed the demon and slashed it in half. He badly wanted to run, but he couldn't use the general as a decoy. He had already decided to part from his old self. With everything he had, he defeated the monster, shocking Grot. Gato reminded Takeru of that general. They shared something similar. 3 hours had passed since he started training, but his ears still felt weird. He pushed the thought aside and focused on cardio to increase endurance. His body had no problem losing weight, so he kept his diet. This new body felt different from his own. He needed to make adjustments without altering it too much. While contemplating his fitness journey, the party returned, but there was a problem. Chika remained inside, acting as decoy for the team to escape. Gato couldn't forgive himself. Takeru realized he was witnessing a different version of that past moment. If someone didn't act soon, things would get worse for the party. Without thinking, Takeru had already crossed through the gate. His mind had been clouded moments ago, and now he stood inside the monster's domain. There was no turning back. Since he was already here, he might as well look for Chika himself. He scanned the area carefully. The monsters immediately took notice of him. The question now was whether he could survive this predicament. For some reason, Takeru felt nostalgic. He couldn't tell if it was because this world resembled the one he came from, or if it was just the forest. But the monsters here were all familiar to him. After a while, realization struck. This world was the same one he used to be in. Then, Chika burst from nowhere, chased by a one-eyed monster. Her mind was still clouded with worry about her teammates. She stumbled, giving the monster an opening to attack. Before things got worse, Takeru blocked the attack with ice magic. Chika stared in shock. She hadn't expected anyone to arrive this fast. Takeru stated he was glad he made it in time. She had some bruises, but that seemed to be all. To avoid revealing his identity, Takeru claimed he was just a passerby. Chika didn't believe him at all. She was observant and immediately recognized him as the same kid she saw outside the gate. Same outfit, same voice. Her memory stunned Takeru. Since he was already caught, there was no reason to lie anymore. As it turned out, Chika investigated and scouted hunters for a living. She kept track of everything around her, which explained how she recognized him so easily. Before things got more complicated, Takeru asked her to move quickly. Everyone outside was worried about her. Hearing this made Chika happy. It meant her teammates were safe all along. Somewhere around the corner, the gate boss grew excited. It was time for the main event. As they made their way back toward the gate, Chika started wondering how much power Takeru had without carrying any tools. The spell he used was a beginner level, nothing special. He was dressed like he had gone out for a walk to a convenience store. There was no way someone like that should be able to enter a gate where monsters roamed freely. This made her wonder who this kid really was. Mid-conversation, Takeru stopped abruptly, confusing her. Then an attack from the gate boss rushed towards them. The explosion and catastrophic scene nearly made Chika faint. She was too scared to move. Takeru ended up carrying her instead. Takeru's power surprised the gate boss as well. The kid had just erased her pet and taken off. She had no choice but to up her game. Knowing things would become more chaotic, Takeru asked Chika if she had any items to obscure the area when she left the gate. She did. When they reached the gate, he asked her for a favor. Don't tell anyone about him. Chika already knew that. Before he left, he made sure she went first so no one would see him on the other side.
inside. The gate boss wasn't happy about this. She still wanted to play with them more, but with the gate already closing, she had no choice but to hope they would meet again next time. Back outside, the Windward Guard party was overjoyed to see Chika alive. Takeru lurked behind the trees, checking to make sure she was okay while keeping his identity hidden to avoid attention. Days after the incident, classes resumed. Adachi had changed drastically, not just in behavior but in appearance too. But something else had changed too. Takeru, Tako, and Adachi weren't at their usual high school. Their school was still repairing damage from the gate break, so they had been temporarily transferred to Odin Academy. This shocked all three of them. They hadn't expected this at all. When the gate break happened, each hunter training school decided to allocate space for classes to continue. The class material would be aligned with their regular school, making it closer to an internship. Since Odin Academy was larger, it could also work as a shelter. For Tako, this was exciting. Being sent to Odin Academy made it even better, but Takeru had mixed feelings about Adachi being here with them. He assured Tako that Adachi wouldn't cause trouble here. Odin Academy was one of the most prestigious schools in the country. There was no way Adachi could act all high and mighty on these grounds. Takeru wanted Tako to forget about Adachi for now and enjoy the experience. Odin Academy was as amazing as expected. The famous hunter Takamina Sakura was here. Many top-ranked graduates had come from this school. Being here felt like a dream come true for Tako. While Tako kept blabbering about how amazed he was, Takeru noticed that nearly all students carried weapons, ready to fight at all times. His observation was cut short when Tako asked if he had met Sakura in person, considering she's the one who picked up his smartphone and asked for his address. Takeru told her the truth. There was no reason to lie. Tako felt a bit jealous and even asked if they had exchanged contact information. Takeru smiled awkwardly and avoided answering. Thankfully, Tako stopped pestering him and instead mentioned that Sakura had a fan club that was extremely serious. If Takeru got too close to her, he should be careful. No one knew what those people would do if they found out Sakura had brought Takeru's phone herself. Right on time, Sakura entered the scene, captivating everyone's attention. Heads turned just to look at her. Takeru couldn't deny that even on school grounds, she seemed like an unattainable flower, just as Tako described. But this also made him wonder if Sakura had any personal friends at all. When Sakura glanced over at him, he found himself smiling and greeting her. Tako was shocked. He hadn't expected Takeru to act this way. Realizing what he had just done, Takeru felt shy for a moment. To avoid confronting the awkward situation, he immediately rushed to the cafeteria, completely ignoring Tako. After classes, Sakura and Takeru had a meeting. She informed him that after he helped Chika, his identity hadn't been revealed as promised, but people were getting more curious. They were starting their own investigations. Sakura wanted him to know that there was a limit to how much she could cover for him. With the Hunter Association in an uproar, things would definitely get harder. Based on Sakura's investigation, they could estimate the strength of a Black Gate's boss by measuring mana. The gate the Windward Guard party had entered was D rank. They should have been done in about 10 minutes. Instead, an A rank Cyclops appeared, causing them to struggle tremendously. To make things more fascinating yet problematic, this irregular named Takeru appeared uninvited. He wasn't registered with the association and just happened to be there. Now, many were questioning whether this irregular was friend or foe. Sakura also theorized that if there was an enemy who unleashed strong magical power like Takeru reported, it would definitely cause an uproar. This made Takeru feel guilty about stepping in without thinking thoroughly. Realizing she had been harsh, Sakura assured him not to dwell on it. What he did was the right thing. No matter what special power he had, he was still a citizen who wished for a peaceful life. That life was worth protecting. From now on, she wanted him to promise to protect his life no matter what. With a captivating smile, she told him to leave dangerous things to the hunters. His parents would worry about his well-being if he got involved in more situations like this. They ended the meeting after discussing the important points. On his way back to class, Takeru realized that Sakura's kindness was what made others admire her. He didn't even have time to chill when a horde of goblins rushed toward them. This didn't scare Takeru anymore. He was used to abrupt situations like this, but because of
of their conversation, he didn't want to take action first. After a minute, a group of hunter students rushed to the scene. They handled the situation. Takeru couldn't deny they were flashy, but what surprised him was that this group was the one Tako had talked about, the Sakura fan club. The club president, Buen, was more energetic than expected. The A-rank group seemed eager to get along with Takeru, who didn't look excited at all. Buen found the new kid's silence refreshing. Since this was rare for him, he concluded that Takeru must be wondering what the Odon society is. Even though Takeru hadn't asked, Buen explained everything. Buen admired Sakura so much that he saw her as a beautiful goddess who needed protection at all costs. Those who admired her gathered together and protected the city. As their numbers increased, they eventually became the largest guild in the school, protecting public peace. Takeru wondered if this meant it wasn't just a fan club after all. Buen continued, revealing that the only condition to join was to love and respect Sakura. Even non-hunters, mages, or support personnel had plenty of duties. After seeing how Takeru looked at Sakura, Buen got the idea that Takeru might want to join. Based on the powerful aura Takeru emitted, Buen thought he would be a good fit. But Takeru knew he wasn't good at dealing with these types of people. Buen had already decided to let him join, especially after seeing how calm he was when that monster almost attacked earlier. Buen knew that wasn't ordinary behavior. This was going too far. Takeru immediately set things straight. He claimed he was just surprised and stayed still, nothing out of the ordinary. Then Sakura rushed in, checking if everything was alright. She had sensed the gate appearing. Since it was already handled, Takeru was about to tell her that a group had taken care of it, but when he turned to introduce them, they were already gone. He brushed it off for now. The next day, Takeru still wondered about the group's deal yesterday. No matter what, he didn't want to get involved, but having such a huge guild within the school amazed him a bit. It wasn't surprising though. Sakura's influence had been apparent from the beginning. He wanted to be careful not to get in their way and make things difficult for himself. But Buen was dedicated to making Takeru a member. When Takeru tried to enter his morning class, Buen was already waiting by the door. Takeru didn't want to get involved with this man, but he had no choice. Buen was in the same class. During and after lectures, Buen always kept his eyes on Takeru, which made him uncomfortable. Then there was Tako, who turned out to be an avid fan of Buen. Tako told Takeru all about the young prodigy. Buen was the successor of the Buen family, a famous bowmanship household that has existed for over 1,000 years. He was strong enough to be called a child prodigy and one of only 5 A-rank hunters in Odon Academy. This gave Takeru the idea that this guy was outstanding even without the club. Tako looked forward to their next lessons, which would be held in the academy training grounds. These types of lectures aren't usually possible in a normal school unless someone from the association came. Having this as a normal lesson meant Odon Academy was truly prestigious. During hunter training, the school used DS monsters to train students in real battles. The usual DS monsters were slimes, which the professor said were good for learning basic skills. These doppelganger slimes shapeshifted into a goblin, making Takeru wonder if it was alright to let students fight it. But since they were just pseudo-monsters made by a magus for practice, there was no need to worry. As training started, students with great potential proved themselves one by one. After each fight, the professor gave advice and constructive criticism. When it was Buen's turn to show off, everyone was amazed by his superb technique. Then it was time for Takeru, Tako, and Adachi to show their skills. The professor asked Takeru to choose his weapon first. Hunters or mages could use these weapons, but the professor recommended starting with a sword. Takeru chose one. The three took their positions, and as soon as the bell rang, Tako and Adachi immediately went in. Takeru stood on the side, which confused many. One enemy remained, so it was up to Takeru whether he would engage. People thought he wouldn't swing the sword at all, but to their surprise, the slime was defeated without anyone seeing Takeru swing the sword. His sword technique was as good as ranked hunters. Takeru couldn't let people think he was that skilled. He asked Adachi to help by claiming the slime hadn't realized it was already cut. Adachi didn't want to play along, but had no choice. This confused Taka, who was surprised that the two seemed close now. Buen's interest in Takeru deepened after seeing him fight. The next day, Takeru visited the library to find a way to return this body to its original owner. It wasn't going to be simple, but he had an idea who to call for clues. There was a magazine Sakura had given him with a story that resembled his situation. The girl featured experienced something similar, except her soul remained
intact, unlike Takeru, whose situation was different. This made him wonder if the original holder of this body was still somehow inside. In the midst of his contemplation, Buen entered, obviously wanting to get closer. After getting interested in Takeru, Buen concluded that he was probably hiding his true power. Takeru stayed calm. Buen insisted he was hiding something. Takeru kept his character and claimed he was just a normal student with memory loss.
Buen didn't believe this. To test him, he asked for a duel. Takeru immediately declined, but when Buen mentioned Hono Usugi, the legendary hunter from Tako's magazine, Takeru became interested. He wanted to know more about her. Buen had met her at a gathering of martial artists out of place, but as of now, Usugi was probably back home, usually held up on the grounds of the sacred mountain. Meeting her wouldn't be easy, but Buen could find a way using his family's connections. He could help Takeru, but only if Takeru agreed to duel him. Using some of the tamed black gates on campus, Takeru and Buen started their duel. As they fought, the way Takeru held his sword and moved his hands made Buen realize his speculation was correct. Takeru was stronger than he looked. Takeru couldn't deny that Buen was strong too, but they had a deal. Takeru tried his best to win no matter what. Using bloodlust, Buen saw his own death. Takeru's presence intimidated him, and Takeru won in the end. Instead of being sad, Buen was surprisingly happy. This meant Takeru really was the person he thought he was. Strong, stronger, and bolder. Then the great bull stuck to the wall suddenly transformed into a minotaur. Takeru immediately took position to fight. Buen stopped him, telling him to run. Even though Buen now knew Takeru's real power, he didn't want to burden him with duties that belonged to the Odan society. Takeru had defeated him easily, but Buen thought Takeru wanted to live as an ordinary person. As club president, Buen wanted to embody Sakura's ideals and protect Takeru no matter what. Buen apologized. He knew Takeru wanted to hide his identity, but he had dragged him into this. To make up for it, Buen would become selfless and kind, just like his idol. 4 years ago at the Buen family dojo, Buen Soma was a first-year junior high school student who kept winning every match. Other students couldn't believe he was real. With such power, everyone expected him to be naturally gifted. Among adults, only the clan head could win against him. That was expected from a child prodigy. But Buen's father wasn't happy with his attitude. He told his son not to be rude to opponents. Skills alone wouldn't get him anywhere. True strength meant something else. To tease his father, Buen recited the exact words his father always told him. One should always protect and guide people correctly with an unbreakable heart against all odds. Hearing this day and night had fed him up. When his training finally ended, he rushed home, completely ignoring his already furious father. But there was no denying that Buen loved getting praised. He even saw this as a talent, finding it extremely satisfactory. Having a big house and good looks gave him confidence others lacked. Although he seemed like a happy-go-lucky type, Buen still admired his father for speaking his heart out for the people. But no matter how he looked at it, for him, a strong person was still a strong person. Monsters were easy to defeat. There was no need to worry about what his father said. So when he got the chance to come across a black gate, Buen immediately jumped in. He wanted personal experience to prove his father wrong. The gate was dangerous. Adults outside were worried for him. They tried to keep him from entering, but couldn't do anything once he was inside. They couldn't go in and help without risking death. They could only pray that an A-rank hunter would come to help. Thankfully, after a few minutes, an A-rank hunter arrived, telling everyone to step back. It wasn't safe near the gate. Inside the gate, Buen couldn't believe what he was witnessing. He had always thought his skills were enough to kill any monster. He was wrong. When the monster grabbed his arm, he honestly thought it was the end. But everyone came to the rescue. He wasn't expecting this at all. He wondered what was going on. Why was there only one rescuer? Would this woman manage to defeat the monster alone? He wanted to move, but fear paralyzed him. The rescuer was having a hard time fighting the monster herself. Instead of worrying about herself, she kept her composure and asked Buen if he was hurt anymore, even though she was the one injured. In that moment, Buen understood what his father meant. He realized he was actually weak and fragile, and there was this girl who smiled so widely, happy that she had defeated every monster. She hurried toward him and said it was time to head back. Everything was better now. Now, finding himself in that exact situation with Takeru, Buen decided to change. He wouldn't be weak anymore. If he fought alongside that person, he wouldn't feel ashamed. No matter how hard it seemed, he needed to become stronger. Even though the Minotaur was an A-rank monster, Buen needed to defeat it no matter what. But Takeru noticed something about Buen's fighting style. His skills were amazing, but he was being too delicate. Takeru observed that being more simple was fine. But Buen needed to remember his opponent was a monster, not a human. To help, Takeru awakened the dormant magical power within Buen. It was a temporary boost. It might feel like dying later, but Takeru was sure it would give Buen the strength to send the monster flying. Right after that blow, Buen couldn't believe what had happened. While he was still in shock, Takeru checked the surroundings. To his surprise, someone was watching them from afar. Somewhere in the area, the villain of this story had finally decided to make sure Takeru didn't slip through their hands anymore. No matter what happened, they would do everything to get Takeru, the irregular. Even if he was stronger than an S-class hunter, he was still human. He definitely had weaknesses. Now the question was how they managed to find out that Takeru was the same person who defeated not just the Cyclops, but also the Minotaur. That answer would come sooner or later. Summer break was almost here. Takeru woke up from a bad dream about his past. He was out of breath, thinking for a moment that he was back in that world again. Thankfully, he wasn't. There was still classes. He rushed to prepare for school and ate breakfast with his family downstairs. While eating, Takeru thought about summer plans. He's already asked Buen to make a meeting with Usugio for the break. Buen promised to do it. Takeru hoped to find a clue about returning this body to the original owner. Now that he thought about it, if the original owner returned, would he disappear forever? This might feel heavy for some, but Takeru wasn't bothered. He'd already died once before. At this point, he just wanted peace. His contemplation was interrupted when his parents worriedly asked if he was okay. His face looked really pale. To avoid worrying them, he said he just had a bad dream, nothing serious. But his father still worried. All they knew was that Takeru had experienced memory loss. This could be a sign of other illness. They couldn't stomach anything else happening to their son. Seeing this reaction made Takeru smile. The parental love the real Takeru's parents gave was unmatched. He wanted to return this body as quickly as possible, but his parents wouldn't let him go to school without a checkup. Instead of attending classes, Takeru was excused to have a hospital checkup. At the hospital, he encountered the Windward Guard party. Seeing him shocked him too. They hadn't expected to meet again. The group had been sent here for treatment and were now allowed to go home. Seeing Chika made Takeru wonder if she had really kept her promise not to say anything about him. Her tense expression and fidgeting confirmed she hadn't. As things got awkward, Chika broke the silence, so she said she was just happy they were all okay, then rushed away as fast as she could. Gato revealed that he knew Takeru was the one who saved Chika that day. He was from Kazami City, and the group wanted to protect the city no matter what. They'd been together since childhood. To think it ended up like that made him furious, but he used that as motivation to become stronger. He promised next time he would be the one to save the city and Chika.
Takeru acted confused. Instead of admitting he was the boy who saved Chika, Gato understood why, but he reminded Takeru that if he was ever in trouble, he could count on Gato and the team. If he encountered problems, he could always ask for help. Before leaving, Gato thanked Takeru. If not for him, they wouldn't see Chika anymore. After a few minutes, Takeru's parents said goodbye too. They needed to get back to work. Takeru assured them he would be fine and go home to take it easy. They should get back to work now. On the way home, Takeru noticed many people being too nice to him. They expressed gratitude and worried. Even though they said it directly to him, it felt wrong to accept. He wasn't the real owner of this body. On top of that, he felt discomfort. Until he could return this body, he would protect these people with everything he had. He wanted to do something about the situation. Since he couldn't do much now, he hoped summer break would come soon. To his surprise, some hunters heard him saying those words. Instead of talking to them, Takeru chose to ignore them, but they were persistent. They introduced themselves as Yashio and To, A-rank hunters working for the S-rank guild Otos. They had come under their leader's orders. Takeru remembered Sakura mentioning Otos. They were prominent in all of Japan, but had many bad rumors swirling around them. Sakura advised him to avoid them at all costs. Takeru kept ignoring them until they showed him a picture. They would go that far just to talk. To avoid involving others, Takeru gave them what they wanted. At a restaurant, they showed him documents. These were the conditions for welcoming him to Otos. The offer was nice. Executive position,
50 million annual income and more. Takeru thought that if he had met these guys first, he would probably hate all hunters. He was glad he met Sakura first. He had no plans to join that guild. He immediately declined. To and Yoshio had no choice but to make him agree by force. Takeru told them they were being violent, but they still planned to land a hit no matter what. Their weapons were advanced, but Takeru's skills matched both of them combined. They still didn't want to give up. They would hold back enough not to kill him, but Takeru had good reflexes and dodged every attack. Yoshio planned to stop his movement first, then catch him off guard. Even working together, they couldn't take him down. Takeru was as powerful as an S-rank hunter. Using his protection guard power, he never got hit, no matter what they did. Punching, kicking, nothing landed. They ended up exhausted. These guys didn't mind using anti-monster skills in public. Desperate to win, Yoshio threatened hostage tactics, but they had the wrong guy. They'd been surveilling Adachi all this time, not Takeru. Since it had gone too far, Takeru took care of the person observing Adachi as well. While To and Yoshio were down, their leader called. Takeru picked up. He asked what a leader from such a large guild wanted from a civilian like him. The boss straightforwardly said he wanted Takeru on his team. Takeru refused. The boss jokingly warned that he'd have to report Takeru to the Hunter Association, but in the end, he had no plans to do so. He wanted Takeru to exist as a secret weapon. There would be no obligations involved. Since the boss knew Takeru wouldn't agree, he sent a picture of Takeru's parents lying in bed. Takeru immediately worried. The boss assured him there was no need to worry, he had only given them poison, but the poison couldn't be cured by this world's medicine. The only thing that could save them was the antidote, which the boss would give only if Takeru accepted his conditions. To talk it out, the boss asked Takeru to come to his place alone. Takeru understood. Bringing backup would only slow things down. After checking on his parents at the hospital, Takeru immediately went to the boss's place. A woman named Kina, the boss's assistant, guided him. On the way, she informed him that such restaurants were used as bases all over Japan. The one he was at before was one of theirs. They entered an empty room. Kina said the boss was waiting on the other side of what looks like a black hole. Without hesitation, Takeru stepped inside. He was welcomed by a crowd of monsters. The boss controlled these creatures. No matter what he said, they would obey. Takeru realized that everything bad happening in the city for the past few days was the boss's handiwork. The boss didn't deny it. He said it was just a test. He also found it funny that Gates kept crying after incidents, so he couldn't stop doing it again and again. Blood boiling with confusion, Takeru asked if this was the boss's goal all along. Without hesitation, the boss stated he did all this to tear everything down. All the damn rules, the guilds, the hunters who followed them. He would take them down once and for all. He would tear it all down and rule his country himself together with his monsters. However, Takeru thought this was impossible. No matter how many monsters the boss tried to involve, things would eventually be brought under control. But that wasn't the case for this boss at all. He had already considered all the consequences. Even if S-rank reinforcements or control came to help, the boss had other trump cards in hand. Then, surprisingly, the boss handed over the antidote to Takeru. This shocked the young man. According to the boss, he had already planned to give it to Takeru after showing him the view. He didn't have any intention of making him his enemy. Takeru didn't believe this at all. The boss had already kidnapped his parents. Instead of discussing the problem, the boss stated that he completely understood Takeru's feelings about hiding his power. But if he thought about it, it seemed unfair that people of power like Takeru had to live that way for years. People like Takeru had continuously been controlled and kept in captivity using public opinion as a shield. In short, nobody would accept people like Takeru because others wouldn't understand. The boss asked Takeru what reason he had to hold that power. He honestly believed that Takeru wanted to go wild. That's why he wanted to offer the kid a hand so he could use that power to take over the whole world without thinking twice. Takeru threw the antidote to the ground while boldly stating that he refused the boss's offer. As it turned out, Takeru had already found out that the poison the boss used was basilisks. He had already cured his parents. Hearing this surprised the boss. This poison hadn't surfaced in this world yet. How did Takeru even know about its existence? Takeru boldly asked the boss to fight him with full force since he came all this way to nail him down. Takeru honestly believed his power only existed to protect his precious peaceful days. If possible, he wanted the boss to come at him. Those who dared to touch what was dear to him would be thoroughly crushed. This excited the boss. Knowing he was strong, he didn't hesitate to attack. Using his power, he ordered the monsters to attack Takeru all at once. Using his flare burst, he burned them all to pieces in one go. But this didn't stop the boss from fighting. He was now even more motivated to keep going until Takeru ran out of power. With that said, the boss showed off his summoning skills, forcibly summoning monsters and forcing them to obey with magic. By the looks of it, Takeru immediately realized that this man was no ordinary man at all. There was a big chance he was an S-rank hunter. Takeru could possibly not go easy on him. Using the best of his powers, Takeru sent off attacks after another. The boss couldn't deny that Takeru was a gifted irregular indeed. His attacks were more flashy than most people's. Since Takeru wasn't an easy opponent, the boss called for his assistant, Kina. It was time to reveal their trump card. With Kina's signal, the boss unleashed the monster he'd been keeping, an 8-headed monster called Hydra.
As soon as the monster emerged, Takeru was stunned. This was the first time he had seen this monster. He couldn't believe something like this could exist in this world. He initiated his first attack, but the monster showed no pain. This gave Takeru the idea that this one didn't react to pain at all. But as he continued his attack, he found out that each head felt pain individually. The challenging part was the regeneration. Since Hydra was an immortal monster, no matter how strong a hunter was, there was no way they could win. However, Takeru thought there was no such thing as immortality. He had fought against these types of opponents all the time. It would be okay if the boss didn't look down on him just yet. There was still a chance things could turn the other way around. He believed there was no such thing as an immortal living being. If the monster kept regenerating each time it was attacked, the only way to defeat it was to blow it away all at once. But Hydra was smarter than Takeru thought. For some reason, Hydra tried to prevent him from gathering his mana, which Takeru found annoying. To win this fight, he needed to take note of everything from now on. As he tried to freeze Hydra's heads after cutting them, Takeru found out that it took about 3 seconds for them to regenerate. He planned to blast fast-casting magic at it during those 3 seconds, but Takeru felt this wasn't enough just yet. He tried to find out if this monster had any other weaknesses. After a couple of seconds, he found it. The monster's weakness was its tail. Using his power, he knocked it down in one go. Seeing his trump card fall in front of him seemed like a dream to the boss, but this didn't mean he would give up already. He was even more pumped up than ever. However, no matter how much he tried to fight back, Takeru was just much stronger. Even when he used his other deadly monsters to attack, he still ended up getting beaten. Since her master was in a tough situation, Kina decided to step in and help. At first, Takeru thought Kina was a normal monster he could defeat in one go, but to his surprise, his speculation was right all along. As it turned out, Kina was a demon who was quite powerful. The fact that Takeru knew about demons amazed Kina. She hadn't expected that someone from this world would even know about their existence. This made her think that Takeru might be the man talked about in the prophecy. Takeru stayed unfazed as he reminisced about the time he was still in the other world. They always told him to kill demons no matter what. For some reason, Kina felt overwhelming fear after seeing Takeru like this. It was as if she was facing the demon lord. She started to wonder what she should do now. Then, the boss gave her permission to do whatever she wanted. Everything he had was gone. All the monsters, the Hydra, were dead. On top of that, he had no mana left either. It was better to leave everything in Kina's hands for now. This gave Kina no choice but to go ahead with her plan. The plan she had been waiting to execute after the hunters got wiped out. Hearing this shocked the boss a bit. This meant she was also planning to take him down, but since he couldn't do much about it anymore, he would do everything he could to give Kina the time she needed. As much as he could, he tried to stop Takeru from moving an inch. On the other hand, Kina worked on her plan on the side. There was a dimensional wall that separated both worlds. A small hole like a gate couldn't do a lot of damage at all. But what would happen if the dimensional wall was gone? With that said, Kina gave birth to what she called her child, Taios. This child of hers, as she called it, would be the one who kill even God. While this was all happening, a slit suddenly opened to connect both worlds. People trying to go on with their day started getting startled as a bunch of gates suddenly appeared everywhere. Kina also started feeling the changes in herself as well.
It would just be a matter of time before finding out if things would end up the way Kina wanted, or if Takeru would win this fight. Now that Kina was starting to rampage everywhere, Takeru needed to prepare himself. Kina was not that simple to defeat at all. But before diving into all of that, let us turn back to the time when everything started. 10 years ago, at the age of 13, the boss Hikawa entered his first gate. Although carrying everyone's bag was pretty heavy, the young Hikawa kept his head high. He knew he was in his senior's good care. Well, that was what he thought at first, until things started to change. During the time they were chased by monsters, his seniors ended up leaving him behind. They only told him that since he had entered the gate at such a young age, he must already be strong enough to manage on his own. At that moment, the young man thought it would be his end. However, things didn't end up the way he thought. Kina was the demon chasing after them. Seeing young Hikawa being left behind somehow amazed Kina. This kid had already experienced so much. Kina decided to save him, but there was an exchange only between the two of them. After that traumatizing event, when he finally got to the hospital, he poured out all of his exhaustion. He asked his teammates why they used him as bait. The fact that they wouldn't get any penalty just made everything worse. His teammates reasoned out to the organization that they didn't technically use him as bait. It was all an accident. Since one of their teammates died, the others started making him feel guilty for opening up. On top of that, his testimony couldn't be confirmed anymore. Nothing could be done because those were the rules of the association. In the end, he agreed to accept Kina's terms. He would crush the Hunter Association as long as Kina gave him the power. He promised to give his everything to ensure they would win. Now that he and Kina were already halfway, he couldn't help but feel a bit relieved, until he saw that Takeru was still alive and okay. But this didn't mean Takeru wasn't having a hard time. He couldn't deny that Kina was strong. No power was affecting her at all. Since he was having quite a hard time himself, he knew if he wanted to win, he needed to find Kina's weaknesses. To do so, he needed to dodge each attack as much as he could. Amid their fight, Kina stated that she and her child had now been united with one another. They had become the strongest being there is right now. Even others would not be able to ignore her. At this point, Takeru's body was reaching its limit. If he didn't end this fast, he might meet his defeat. Kina herself thought there was no way Takeru's attack would ever work on her. But this didn't mean Takeru would give up that easily. Using his aerial burst, he sliced off Kina's head in one go. As it turned out, Takeru was able to notice Kina's weakness. Since she was in control of the monster, it was easier to deal with his Hydra. However, Kina herself wouldn't give up that easily either. At this point, her mind was starting to erode. She was now unable to control the power of Taios. In hopes that the tides would be in her favor, she tried to threaten Takeru. She said she would go after his family and everyone dear to him. Since Takeru didn't want anyone to get involved in this mess, especially his family, he just gave Kina an angry look. For some reason, Kina started to feel fear that she never thought she would ever feel again. She now started to wonder. She had already obtained such strong power, so why was she still afraid of a mere kid? This caused her to remember those hurtful days when her family was the one who looked down on her. As tears started to pour down her eyes, she tried to get a hold of herself. She knew that this weakness was only in her mind. She was indeed weak back then, but now it's different. That is why, as much as possible, she would try to take revenge on all the people who made fun of her. She would do everything to make them feel despair. To do that, she would need to kill this kid who she thought was from the prophecy that everyone had been looking for, even if it meant she died trying.
Meanwhile, Takeru had been remembering the time he was living in the other world as well. There was one moment when he and Eweiss were resting in the woods. Eweiss excitedly informed him that this time's journey had a lot of people going with them. This meant their journey would be quite lovely for sure. But Eweiss still wondered if it was okay to refuse, considering everyone had even offered to join another party to subjugate the Demon Lord. Immediately, Takeru stated that anyone had the right to do so. It was quite a dangerous mission. Plus, Takeru also thought that everyone would not be able to keep up with his
pace. Iwais couldn't agree more. If her memory served her right, there was even a time when Takudu left his horse and started running all of a sudden. On top of that, there was even a time when he decided to climb a cliff. For sure, no one would be able to keep up with his pace at all. Aside from that, Iwais also knew that Takudu didn't trust everyone at all, even if all they did was compliment his power and whatnot. Takudu just felt more at ease being alone, but no matter how much he denied it, he indeed loved when Iwais stayed by his side, taking care of him when things didn't go the way he expected. Aside from that, thanks to Iwais, his injuries always healed up on time. That is why, no matter what happened, he would not allow this event happening now to back him down at all. Although he only scratched the surface of Teos, that didn't mean he would not go all in anymore. Now that he already knew Kina's real body location, all that was left for him to do was kill her with all his might. But since his body was starting to lose a bit of energy, his movements had now become a bit dull. Kina managed to notice it. Even though Takudu knew that it was simple to deal with this woman, since his body had reached its limits, he couldn't rapidly fire strong spells anymore. But this didn't worry him at all, considering he knew that it was the same for Kina. Teos was likely sucking up her life force and using that move. If it was like that, then there was one more thing he needed to do. Kina was quite observant. She immediately realized that Takudu had figured out the source of Teos's power. It was futile to wait for her death. It was also taking the life force of the humans of this world as well. On top of that, Teos's followers were already overflowing in Japan. No matter what Takudu did now, everything would end up dead anyway. But instead of stopping, Takudu thought that if that was the truth, then he needed to quickly return to the other side. But once he killed her, he wondered if he would be able to move at all. At this point, Takudu didn't know what to do anymore. As it turned out, Kina was quite aware of the fact that if Takudu killed her, Teos would go out of control. That was maybe the reason why Takudu wouldn't kill her at all. However, her speculation was wrong. Takudu didn't show any signs of giving up at all. Meanwhile, in Tokyo, Japan, the guilds were now working hard to make sure that everything was under control as much as possible. Gato and his teammates in particular were trying to be optimistic in these dark times so that people wouldn't panic at all. Then there were those hunters that came from Oidan Academy. As they fought the monsters, they kept shouting Sakuda's name, completely showcasing how proud they were of their role model. They stated that they existed to protect the peace and the citizens of this town from fish monsters. Buen was quite confident until a monster got a grasp of him. His teammates started panicking all of a sudden. Thankfully, Sakuda came in time before things got worse. Even though Buen looked like an S-rank hunter already, he knew to himself that S-rank was still a distant dream. Meanwhile, Sakuda seemed to be going from one place to another to make sure that everything was well taken care of. Now that she had finished fighting the ones in the central area of the city, she moved on to the next. People just couldn't believe that Sakuda possessed this much power. On the back of Sakuda's mind, no matter what came her way, she would defeat it, no matter what. On the other hand, Takudu was also doing his best to make sure he didn't get defeated. Even Kina was shocked at Takudu's power. She had never seen anything like this before. Now that her underlings were evaporating one by one, she couldn't help but get a bit worried. Amid this tense fight, Takudu suddenly remembered what Iwais asked of him before. As it turned out, the reason why he was unable to trust his former men before was because he was self-aware of his strength that surpassed other people, so he distanced himself from them before they could do that with him. He was too proud of his power to look around himself. Since he had already learned his lesson, he went on to share it with Haika. As per Takudu, the vast majority of people would not become powerful, but if he looked around properly, he would find people that were not like that. That is why Takudu is very thankful for the two. They were able to make him realize that he was not fighting alone at all. Since things were going a bit out of control for Kina, she finally decided to sacrifice herself so that they could finally put an end to this with their final blow. However, no matter how much sacrifice she made, Takudu always ended up winning in the end. Takudu got a hold of the whole situation, which was something Kina wasn't expecting at all. The dimensional wall was not breaking. All of a sudden, it seemed like the demon couldn't believe the fact that Takudu didn't simply kill Teos, but he also erased Teos's whole existence. She could easily say that the power he possessed surpassed what humans are capable of. As Takudu walked towards Kina, the demon couldn't help but get a bit afraid of him. It seemed like Takudu would like to ask her something before he killed her all at once. Immediately, Takudu asked her what this prophecy she was been talking about was. Struggling, she stated that it was about a power like Takudu's, but before she could even continue what she was saying, her wound was not regenerating anymore. She was dying. Seeing the demon die ached Heike's heart. After all, they had been partners for a long time already. Letting go of such a bond was not easy at all. At this moment, Heike started to reminisce about the time he spent with her, all the bad and the good. Seeing her like this seemed like a punishment for him. However, instead of looking all sad, Kina tried to keep a happy look on her face so that Heike wouldn't feel bad. But no matter what she did, Heike's heart was already broken, to the point that he couldn't control his anger anymore, and was now about to kill Takudu no matter what. Before he could even try doing so, a group of unknown people came onto the scene, shocking Takudu. He wasn't expecting any other guests anymore. With a calmness in his voice, he asked the group for their identity. Without even hesitating, the three introduced themselves as Rere, Sukuna, and the Dark Knight. Just one look at them and Takudu already knew that these people were strong. They didn't falter at all, and he knew to himself that if he exerted any more power in fights, his body would break for sure. Takudu wondered what step he should take next. Out of nowhere, the three assured Takudu that they wouldn't do anything wrong. He didn't need to be so on guard. They reasoned that they only came here to take care of the traitor, Kina. They technically didn't have any intentions of fighting with Takudu at all. Aside from that, they were also here to get something that they referred to as a trade secret. That is why, as soon as they got their hands on it, they immediately initiated going back home. But knowing Takudu, he wouldn't allow them to leave just like that at all. But since Reda knew that Takudu was quite tired, he just told him to take it easy for now. For sure they would meet again in the near future. There was no need to rush.
Seeing demons made Takaru wonder if this was the same other world that he knew of. But he knew for a fact that was not the case at all. Meanwhile, back in the city, many people had already died. The damage done due to this large outbreak was unprecedented. The leader behind this incident was quickly arrested by the Hunter Association as well. People should be at ease by now. For some reason, Hikawa was not resisting at all. Maybe because he had finally felt guilty for what he had done. While in transit to the station, Hikawa was contemplating what Takaru had said to him a while ago. At the back of his mind, he had been looking into the association, and they had never been on the side of justice at all. He was sure he didn't have long to live. Thankfully, it seemed like his teammates were now here to rescue him. As the police car got hit by one of Hikawa's men's explosives, they easily got to their boss within seconds. But before they started to initiate their attack, the boss reminded everyone that only those ready to die should come with him. They would finish this once and for all. Meanwhile, at Kazami Municipal Hospital, Takaru's parents were now well. They would head their way back home. Outside the hospital, Takaru immediately felt the heat of the sun, indicating that summer break was almost around the corner indeed. On the other hand, the three demons had also finally made their way back home. Immediately, they informed the princess that as she had ordered them to do, they had already dealt with Kina, whom they termed now as a traitor. Aside from that, they had also recovered the stolen item, Pandora. But that was not the exciting part just yet. Rear also informed the princess that they had let a man go who seemed to be from the prophecy of the Messiah. The princess was quite happy with this decision. She thought it was not yet time at all. Sue, on the other hand, was starting to throw tantrums once more. It seemed like she really wanted to play with Takaru. However, since things were not yet that safe for them, it was safer to just let Takaru be for now. Meanwhile, at the Hunter Association Japanese HQ, the heads were having a meeting regarding what happened the other day. S-Rank Surino informed everyone that he had already contacted all 50 S-Rank hunters to convene here for an emergency. However, it seemed like only 5 people came, which honestly surprised him like hell. At this moment, he started to wonder if these hunters didn't care about what happened to Japan now that things were getting out of control. Sakura told the leader that since the people here responded to the summons, she didn't think it was good to keep talking about the others. S-Rank Saw Kaden also stated that getting people to gather on site in this day and age was just a bit primitive. The leader pointed out that they might talk about confidential stuff, so it couldn't be helped at all. However, instead of agreeing with the leader, Kaden even teased him, causing Sue to feel more irritated than he already was. Since the Hunter Association was run by the government, if they used tax money to go to fancy inns or hotels, for sure they would immediately be kicked out from their jobs. But for Kaden, no matter what the government said, the hunters were still the ones protecting the people. Sue didn't like hearing this at all, as he was pro-government. Then, on the other hand, the other hunters tried to loosen the tension a bit. S-Rank Hunter Igarashi Hideo called out Hunter Hayabusa Tenku and started teasing him with Kaden. This immediately made Tenku blush. He wasn't expecting to be put in this kind of situation at all. However, it seemed like he was not Kaden's type at all. A kind guy who would do anything for others, even if they were weak, was not technically the man Caden was looking for. Hearing this made Tenku feel a bit down. This technically meant he just got rejected without even confessing. Now that Tenku was feeling bad about himself, Hideo tried to cheer him up, saying that his destined partner was waiting for him somewhere for sure. While they were all in chaotic mode, the Hunter Association President Akahoshi Maoi came into the scene. To Sue's surprise, everyone started acting politely all of a sudden. With that said, the president started the meeting immediately. First, they discussed the terrorist act they had the other day, which was led by Hikawa. In that regard, the president informed everyone that upon investigation, they had confirmed the involvement of demons. This confused the hunters, as they had never heard of such a thing before. The president told them that demons were people who existed outside of the gates. Perhaps they could also call them the Otherworlders. Some of the hunters, like Tenku, already knew there were signs of civilization inside the gates, but he wondered, wasn't it all in ruins already? However, Hideo thought it was natural for them not to know. These demons only appeared once before, more than 20 years ago. They were able to defeat them and they never appeared again. To be more precise, demons only appeared like people, but they were merciless monsters themselves. With that said, based on what Hideo had stated, it would be impossible to establish relations. However, if they announced this to everyone, there would be people who would disagree with them. Aside from that, there would also be people who would try to go and meet these demons for sure. Since they couldn't predict how things would be, they planned to hide the existence of demons for now. The truth would be disclosed just to those S-Class, and a system would be set up. They needed to participate in this cover-up as much as possible. Hearing all this caused Sakura to wonder if her mom and dad got killed by a demon, not a humanoid monster. As she was about to ask more questions about it, the president moved on to the next topic. Takaru. Seeing Takaru's photo on the big screen sent shivers down Sakura's spine. She wasn't expecting that the association would already know about him, but it seemed like the president had his ways indeed. According to him, Takaru destroyed the Odo's guild himself. This made Tenku wonder. According to the reports they received, Hikawa was caught by the association's hunters, so how could Takaru possibly defeat them all on his own? One of the officers stated that by the time they got to the location, Hikawa was already down. That is why they immediately checked the CCTV cameras and found Takaru. Since he did not belong to the Hunter Association, they were now investigating what sort of individual he was. If any of them had information about him, the president would like them to gather it all in one. However, as the meeting went on, nobody shared anything at all, causing the president to smile all of a sudden. As it turned out, the president had just called for the 4, not the entire organization. Sue was the only one who had accomplished throughout this plan. That is why he wanted Sue to keep it a secret as of now. He still had some plans in mind. Now it was a matter of time before knowing whether the president had something up his sleeves. If there was, what could it possibly be? Meanwhile, Sakura was in deep confusion. She wasn't expecting Takaru's name to come up in such a major event. At the back of her mind, no matter how much she tried to keep it under wraps, nothing seemed to work. Even if she did so much for Takaru's sake, Takaru himself was just too careless. At this point, she was genuinely confused about whether Takaru did want to be hidden or not. But despite what happened, Sakura believed that Takaru had his reasons. She planned to at least talk to him about it. Without hesitation, she immediately sent a message to Takaru, telling him to contact her when he saw this message. Then the president entered the scene, assuring Sakura that there was no need for her to worry. It seemed like the president already knew about the fact that the cause of the incident regarding Odos was that they poisoned Takaru's parents. There was no need for Sakura to worry at all. The Hunter Association did not plan to do anything to Takaru, but for now, the president wanted Sue and the rest to solve this issue as much as possible. The president wanted only Sakura to know about this because she was friends with Takaru. Hearing this shocked Sakura. She wasn't expecting the president to know much about it at all. But instead of thinking about how the president knew, Sakura started to wonder if she was friends with Takaru at all. In her perspective, they were not. As soon as the president left, a girl named Momiji came in looking cute, telling Sakura that she came here to get her. It seemed like their grandfather was waiting for them. Then Momiji started crying since this was the first time Sakura's work had calmed down. They could finally spend time together after a long time. To make it up to Momiji, Sakura stated decided that she would do anything Momiji liked, no matter what it was. Hearing this made Momiji feel happy. As soon as she showed Sakura what she wanted, Sakura couldn't help but get shocked. The next day, Takeru decided to visit the mall. He had something to buy. As soon as he got there, he wasn't shocked to see that the whole place was crowded. He was already expecting it, considering summer break had already started. But he had a lot of things he needed to buy, so he had to come here even though he didn't want to. It had only been a week since the incident, but the government sure restored buildings pretty quickly. Takeru guessed that maybe this was due to that specialized restoration bureau under the Hunter Association or something. But instead of worrying about it now, he was glad that he was able to buy a new smartphone. His old one got broken during the fight with Taios. Now that he was on his way home, Takeru came across some unexpected people. Momiji together with Sakura. It seemed like the two went shopping as well. Although Takeru greeted Sakura with a big smile, Sakura seemed upset. Thinking about the fact that Takeru didn't respond to her message the other day, the angry look on Sakura's face was so apparent that Takeru started getting a bit scared. Without hesitation, he explained everything to Sakura, from how his phone broke to buying a new one. On the other hand, Momiji was just observing her sister. Based on what she remembered their grandmother telling them, Momiji couldn't help but speculate that Sakura must be in love with Takeru, considering how angry she was at him for ignoring her. Without thinking twice, Momiji asked her if Takeru was her boyfriend. At first, Sakura was a bit shy hearing this, but since she had been wondering since yesterday if Takeru looked at her as a friend, she went along with Momiji's statement. She stated that they were indeed friends. Sakura thought that Takeru felt a bit awkward hearing this, but to her surprise, he seemed even happy and honored at the fact that the most popular person at school was his friend. Since Momiji wanted to know more about Sakura at school, she invited Takeru to join them for shopping, shocking the two. But instead of saying no, Takeru granted Momiji's request for now. In the end, the three went shopping the whole day. On the other hand, the Windward Guard party was having lunch at a restaurant when they happened to notice Takeru and the two. Seeing the two together somehow shocked them. They thought that maybe Takeru and Sakura were on a date. While the others looked amused looking at the two, the leader of the group looked rather serious. Back to Takeru and Sakura, since it had been bothering her since earlier. While Momiji rode the merry-go-round, Sakura told Takeru that it was not good to lie about her being liked by everyone at school. Although he was a bit scared to talk back to Sakura, Takeru straightforwardly said that it was not exactly a lie at all. Hearing Takeru say this made Sakura realize that he was not a bad person after all. No matter what others might say, Sakura knew that Takeru just fought for his parents' well-being. She assured that he was a kind-hearted individual. Although the president said he was looking into Takeru, Sakura managed to notice that he was acting like he knew him before his incident. She wondered why. Questions like who Takeru was or if he had amnesia started rushing to Sakura's mind. So even if they said that they were friends, she still thought that she didn't know the slightest thing about him. The rather serious conversation was interrupted when the ride Momiji hopped on suddenly stopped. She was nowhere to be found. Immediately, the two started to worry about her. But little did they know, from Momiji's perspective, she wanted to leave them by themselves so that they could confess their love for one another. While she hid, Momiji happened to notice a boy crying on the side, clearly lost and looking for his parents. Without hesitation, she told him that she'd help find his parents. Not a little while after, a gate break suddenly appeared, causing everyone to panic. The whole place was now chaotic. Momiji immediately grabbed the boy's hand and ran away together as fast as they could. Meanwhile, Takeru and Sakura had now become even more worried for Momiji. While they were looking for her, the people in the park were relieved when they saw Sakura. There was now a chance they could all be rescued. Without hesitation, they asked her to hurry and take care of everything. But since her sister was nowhere to be found, Sakura couldn't seem to function properly. Since she couldn't talk right out, Takeru spoke on her behalf. He asked everyone if they happened to see Sakura's little sister. To be more specific, Takeru stated some important details. Momiji was a 5-year-old girl wearing the same dress as her sister, as well as a ribbon on her head. Based on this information, some people remembered that they happened to see her somewhere. As soon as Sakura heard that her sister walked towards the gate break, she didn't waste a minute. She immediately went there to check on her. At the back of her mind, she just tells the little boy that there's no need to worry. Her sister Sakura will take care of everything for sure. But it seems like the two are in a harder situation than Momiji has anticipated. One of the monsters is now making its way toward them, ready to kill them on the spot. On the other hand, Sakura rushes toward where her sister is, remembering the time their parents died saving them. This gives her the motivation to look for her sister no matter what. If If she loses Momiji as well, she can't possibly forgive herself anymore. Just in time, the two managed to spot Momiji in one alley. The monster was about to hit her already, but before it can do so, Takaru jumps right in, completely defeating it in one go. After taking care of everything they had to, Takaru and Sakura finally finish the day off, saving everyone. Aside from that, Sakura has also found the boys' parents, which is great. Before they go their separate ways, Sakura apologizes to Takaru for not staying calm, even though she is a hunter. That's why he ended up needing to use his powers. Looking a bit shy, Takaru assures Sakura that there was no need to worry about it at all. She has always been looking out for him. Maybe it is time for him to do her a favor as well. Hearing this calms Sakura a little. On the other hand, Momiji also thanks Takaru for his help. If it wasn't because of him, she might already be dead by now. Takaru grabs this chance to remind Momiji not to wander off like that on her own next time, since Sakura would end up worrying again. But Takaru also can't deny the fact that it is quite awesome how Momiji protected that boy without even flinching a bit. Hearing this makes Momiji quite happy. This is the first time she has been praised. On the other hand, Sakura is still deep in her thoughts, wondering how Takaru managed to know those moves earlier. They belong to someone who has experienced a lot of battles. Without hesitation, she directly asks him just who he was exactly. Since she doesn't want to doubt him anymore, she wants to know the truth right here. Feeling a bit of guilt for not telling Sakura more about himself, Takaru is ready to tell her everything from now on forward. However, before he can even do so, Momiji interrupts their conversation, telling them both to get along. After watching a lot of television dramas, Momiji suggests that for them to reconcile, they need to kiss just like how the actors do it. Hearing this innocent child making such a suggestion just makes Sakura smile. Since they had quite a long day already, Sakura asks Takaru if he wants to walk home with them. Without thinking twice, Takaru agrees, saying yes. On the way home, Takaru notices that Sakura and her sister are quite close, which is something he is a bit envious of. However, Sakura feels that because of this, she ends up spoiling Momiji a lot. Nonetheless, it doesn't bother her at all. Momiji is her only treasure now. No matter what happens, she will make sure to give her sister the best life there is. She also shares that their parents were killed when Momiji was very little, so she's not familiar with their parents' love at all. Since Sakura was a weak child then, Momiji ended up growing up feeling alone as a result. Sakura started feeling regret, which is why she decided to become strong. That's why she became a hunter for a rather personal reason. At the back of her mind, if she is strong, she can protect those she wants to protect, so Momiji won't have to cry anymore. But likewise, she would also like it if that led to a world where everyone could laugh freely. Although she knows this sounds like the world is an afterthought for her, it is not. On top of that, Takaru also tells Sakura something he thinks he would not be able to tell her the next time they see each other. With such a wide smile on his face, he states that he was glad that he was able to meet her. She let him experience things beyond imagination. He also states that his memories might be returning, so there's a big chance that the memories he has made during this short time will probably be gone. This confuses Sakura a bit, as it didn't add up at all. Takaru states that it is because he is not the real Takaru. However, Sakura doesn't get the point. She just states that even if he forgets about her, she will still remember him as her friend. The next day, since Takaru plans on meeting Yusuji Kikyo, he and Bowen are now on their way to Niigata. It seems like Takaru is not enjoying Bowen's company at all. Meanwhile, at the sacred mountains of Yukari, Yusuji Kikyo is seen. As soon as they got to the village, the two immediately hiked the mountains. Takaru is a bit surprised at the fact that his body feels rather light even after hiking for hours now. It seems like these woods have a dense amount of mana circulating through them, which Takaru notices himself. According to Bowen, these mountains were a favorable spot to build a place for a temple since it is a place that connects to a different world that is not through a gate. There have been tales of yokai and the like only coming out at some point in time. All of those come from these dragon veins that exist in places like this. So everything here has a shared point of origin. If Bowen would be blunt about it, this place has all sorts of dangerous beings, and it is only known by S-class hunters and a few distinguished families. However, there's no need to worry at all. If monsters find their way in, there's someone to take care of it. In Japan, exorcists are popular, but the Yusuji family was one that has protected Japan since the old times. But why did Bowen refer to them as was? Takaru wonders. It seems like they were destroyed 10 years ago by a monster that appeared in this area. That monster was sealed by Yusuji Subaru, Kikyo's sister, but in the end, she ended up offering her life for it. This means the only one who has survived was none other than Kikyo alone. That is why she has been protecting the seal for all this time, which also means that her photo appearing in a magazine is a rare moment indeed. Now that Bowen mentioned it, Takaru gets the idea that Kikyo has that calm vibe to her, to which Bowen immediately disagrees. As the two start discussing even more, Kikyo suddenly appears out of nowhere, beating Bowen up for talking badly behind her back. This causes Takaru to look at her from a different angle. Since she is now taking care of Bowen, she turns her attention to Takaru as well. Before starting the fight, she tells Takaru to show her what he's got. To her surprise, Takaru is not ordinary at all. If he was an average hunter, then her first attack would have been the end of him already. Aside from that, she's also quite surprised at the fact that Takaru's counterattacks are pretty good. From the way he hardens his arm and waits for a stance to break, Kikyo is certain that Takaru is used to battles indeed. But she still thinks that Takaru has no chance with her until she sees what Takaru can do. Before things get out of control, Kikyo states that this is already enough. If they just continue any further, it would go beyond a test. Since she has already seen Takaru's potential, they should stop the fight now. Considering she has already heard a lot about him, Kikyo asks him some questions just to know more. Since Takaru is not a hunter at all, she wonders why he has come all this way just to see her. Without hesitation, Takaru states that he wants her to exorcise a ghost that is possessing him right now. He explains that he was in a bit of an accident that resulted in a loss of memory and probably gave him the ability to use these powers through possession. That is why he wants to go back to his normal self. Hearing this makes Kikyo realize that Takaru is not ordinary at all. Kikyo doubts Takaru would lie after coming this far. She just asks to confirm if Takaru wants to exorcise that ghost inside of him or not. Since it seems like he badly wants to, Kikyo has no choice but to invite him to her mansion so that they can talk more. After a long day, Takaru is a bit exhausted from the fight and Kikyo's family's hospitality. To rest up a little, he goes to take a bath in the spring to relax. Suddenly, Takaru feels a presence. Surprisingly, it is none other than Kikyo. Scared for his life, Takaru tries to keep silent as much as possible until he hears Kikyo talking to herself, asking why she is not good at socializing at all. It seems like what happened earlier between her and Takaru bothered her a little. As much as possible, she tells herself to keep trying, all for the sake of the Yasuji family. Hearing all of this causes Takaru to glance at her a bit, wondering why Kikyo is so different from earlier. Because of this small move, the S-rank hunter manages to notice his presence. Without hesitation, she immediately sends off a deadly attack. But as soon as she sees that it was just Takaru, she stops immediately, her cheeks heating up from embarrassment. The next day, Takaru expects that she would get angry at him. But surprisingly, she seems cool about what happened. In fact, she even greets Takaru good morning. This confuses the boy so much that he starts stuttering. Since she can feel the awkward air, she immediately goes blunt to Takaru, asking him if he is acting like this because of what happened yesterday. So that Kikyo doesn't get the wrong idea, Takaru apologizes immediately, making Kikyo laugh a little. She was just teasing him. She also assures him that it was her fault in the first place, so there was no need to worry. Since this is a new day, it is now time for them to know more about the ghost possessing Takaru. For her to be able to investigate more, she asks Takaru to close his eyes and focus as he listens to his heartbeat. To her surprise, Takaru is doing quite better than she expected. With this tremendous concentration, it feels like no sound will ever affect him at all. However, as she thinks about Takaru's story, she knows right off the bat that he was lying from the start. As a member of the Yasuji family who served divine gods, she can discern such things. His story just feels off, yet it doesn't feel like this kid is telling a lie at all. So to see what is really going on, Kikyo needs to take a good look at what's inside him. As soon as she gets inside Takaru's mind, she can't deny the fact that his mind looks calm and gentle, but she does feel some sort of sadness as well. As she wonders deeply, she is shocked at what she sees. That is why as soon as she gets out of Takaru's mind, she immediately knows that with the power inside him, there was no way Takaru was just a normal citizen just like what he claimed to be. No matter what happens, she badly needs to find out who the hell Takaru really is. Meanwhile, Takaru is now confused about what's going on. It seems like Kikyo is really trying to kill him. Without any choice, Takaru needs to use protective measures to make sure he doesn't get killed at all. Seeing Takaru go all out, Kikyo concludes that Takaru is indeed the strongest hunter she has met so far. Since this has gone a bit too far, Takaru has no choice but to fight back. He can't possibly hold back anymore. As she gets swept away by Takaru's power, Kikyo somehow stops fighting back all of a sudden. It seems like her ribbon got lost while fighting. Since it is a gift from her family, she can't afford to lose it no matter what. Now that it is already gone, she has no choice but to cry her eyes out. Takaru, on the other hand, looks bothered. He thinks it was his fault. As much as possible, he tries to calm her down, but nothing seems to be working. Meanwhile, somewhere at the area of the seal, something grim is about to take place. 10 years ago, when the Yasuji family was still alive, they reminded themselves that since the family had risked their lives to pave the way, they couldn't possibly let it go to waste. It was now time for them to act for the sake of everyone.